Hey guys, we are back at the workshop and today we are working on a couple of knives, and these knives are going to be made out of Magnacut. Magnacut is one of the newest steels and it's a really nice stainless steel, but also really wear resistant. It's like one of the top-notch knife steels that you can get at the moment. So let's get started with that. So right here you can see I've drawn up a couple of designs that I want to try out, and I also had some pieces left over from a custom order that I want to use up and don't want to waste that steel. That steel is not that cheap. So we've got two like camping outdoor knives. One is a little bit bigger, the one is a little bit smaller, and also to use up the rest of the space we got some cool little slicing knives. So we are going to start cutting them out with the angle grinder and then going to go to the belt grinder. So when I'm profiling my knives, I'm mostly using the 10-inch contact wheel. It grinds much cooler, and also you don't damage your flat platen. And when I'm done with the rough profiling, I'm turning around my grinder to the horizontal mode with a work rest, set it up at 90 degrees, and then I'm just smoothing out all the areas of the knife so we have a nice 90-degree angle and smooth lines. You can do that with a contact wheel, flat platen, however you want to grind your knives. With this knife in particular, I have a recurve, so I'm using the 10-inch contact wheel to grind in that slight recurve. So the knives have been profiled, and now we are going to drill out the holes in the tang. For some knives I'm going to use screws, and for other knives I'm going to use pins and epoxy to glue them up. And that is just because with screws you always have to have a certain thickness in the handle material, and especially when you want to do like a Coke bottle handle or so, then the screws can be in your way and you can't just grind them off. With pins, they're always like you can just grind over them, so that's why I'm using pins, because on some of these knives I want to make really cool Coke bottle handles. So let's drill some holes and get these knives ready for the grinding. Alright, so the knife is now ready to be ground pre-heat treatment, and I've also laid out some center lines so I know where the center of the knife is and we will get a nice geometry. I am also working off a work rest, and I just found out that when I grind like that, I have more stabilization in my grinds because the belt is pushing down like that. And so it always tries to push down your knife while you're grinding. And when I have my hand here, I have a really stable position to grind the knife. And the work rest helped me a lot to get really clean grinds in. And that's why I would recommend it. Try it out. Some people, they don't like to grind with the work rest. Some people even grind like that. There are a lot of options. Just try it out. I saw it when DB Blades was here, and after that I tried it out and was like, yeah, that's a game changer. So I would really recommend working off of a work rest, especially when you start grinding knives. Alright, so the knives are now pre-ground before the heat treat. So now I'm going to grab my heat treating foil, and we are going to wrap up these knives because we are putting the Magnacut at a really high temperature into the oven, and we want to protect the steel from the oxygen so we don't draw out any kind of the carbon, because that can happen with these kind of high temperatures. And if you want to know how to heat treat Magnacut, they have an excellent sheet on their website. It's like a recipe, so you can just dial the steel in on the HRC that you want. I'm going to dial my steel into 62, 63 Rockwell with liquid nitrogen, so cryo bath after the heat treat, and then we're going to temper them. So let's wrap up these knives and get them heat treated. So the knives are now out of the hardening process. We've plate quenched them, and now we can put them into the liquid nitrogen, and then after that we can temper them. The knives are now heat treated so we can finish up the grinds on them. It's Magnacut, so that will be tough and rough on my belt, on me, but we'll get some cool grinds afterwards and we'll be rewarded with some pretty amazing knives. So let's get these knives finished ground. So I'm changing now from a flat platen or a hollow grinding wheel to my rotary platen, and that just helps me with a convex grind. You can see how the belt has a little bit more give to it, and that gives us that slight recurve, and I'm just grinding on a portion of the edge, so not the whole way through. So I'm just convexing that grind, and that rotary platen is also really nice because it keeps the knife really cool, because you have to be really careful when you're grinding that you don't overheat your knives. So the knives are now ground, and it took actually a couple of belts. Some are more expensive, some less, but that's still a big amount of belts that I used on these 4 knives actually. So Magnacut is really wear resistant, and it's tough to grind, but it's also challenging, which is cool. And this one is the first part, and in the next part we are going to glue up the handle, shape the handle, and finish up these knives. So stay tuned for the second part, and if you don't want to miss that, hit the subscribe button. If you got any questions, just drop them down below. I try to answer them as quickly as possible. So let's see us in the next part.